to order.
You want
So,
to do that, Gary?
yep, I will do a roll call for who's here, and then Don Marie will do the intro for the meeting. So I am Gary Ellis. I am president. According to my clock, it's 3:04. We have Don Marie is here. George Slammer,
Hi.
you're here.
I'm here.
Paul Huggins.
Here.
Debbie. Debbie's here, but you're muted, Deb. Jeff, you are here. Liz Hartsgrove
Present.
and Christine Margiano. Is anybody else here, Don? Not that I see.
No, I don't see anybody else. But welcome, Jeff. Nice to have you.
Yes, thanks. Again, I'm a little concerned about the rest of the team, but maybe they'll surprise me in a minute or two. It in no way reduces our enthusiasm for this discussion, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't mind, I'll get started because Liz, I think, provided a good segue and an interesting one for your age and demographics. What made you
Well, I'm going
join?
to, excuse me 1 minute, Jeff. I'm just
Yeah.
going to go through quickly the little preamble that we read before opening the meeting officially.
Thank you.
Okay, it says a precautionary measure to reduce the spread of coronavirus, all town buildings are closed to the public, and the February 3rd, 2021 Community Preservation Committee meeting will be held by remote participation. My name is Don Marie Collette, CPA Program Coordinator, and I'll be serving as moderator for this virtual meeting. Although no in-person attendance will be permitted, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings. Persons who would like to view or listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by watching via this virtual meeting or dialing into the number provided on the notice of meeting. We will also post a recording of this meeting on the Town of Yarmouth website as soon as we are able. Please be patient as we work to overcome any technological challenges with the virtual meeting. For all meetings, to reduce confusion during the meeting, all audience participants of the virtual meeting enter the meeting muted. Participants will be unmuted when called upon to speak by the chair or moderator. If you are not speaking, please mute yourself to avoid unnecessary background noise. All votes must be roll call votes. After a motion is made and there is a second, the chair will ask for a roll call vote. For public participation, comments or questions from the public will be taken at the discretion of the chair. Members of the public may speak by selecting the raise hand button and waiting for the chair to call on them to speak. If you are dialed into the phone number provided, you can press *9 on your phone to indicate that you would like to comment. And members of the public recognized by the chair are asked to identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation for the public record, and then to provide their comment each time they speak. And I will now hand the meeting back to the chair. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Don. So I think at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I think we all know Jeff Traber is here. You are the vice chair at Dennis CPC, correct, Jeff?
Yes, they had an election of chairpersons, and I asked for a transition person. So we have a vice chair, Frank Dahlstrom, who couldn't make it today.
Okay. So just as a quick intro, Jeff and I have spoken by phone. He brought up the idea of having like a workshop meeting where Yarmouth and Dennis talked, which I thought was a great idea because, you know, briefly for years, whenever we had joint projects, people always had questions to me. Well, why should we give money to Dennis? I'm sure, Dennis, you had the same feedback. Why should you do to Yarmouth? I know from going through the coalition, going from the state CPC, they encourage regional projects. We've done some. We've done the tennis courts at DY High School. We're now at Cape Playhouse. We're talking about, or Dennis will be talking about the Cultural Center. We did the conservation restriction down at Chapin Beach for ARC, and we did one other project. I can't remember what that was, Don, but we have a track
Cape
history.
Playhouse?
I mentioned Cape Playhouse. So
Senior housing.
yes, that's it. We
Housing.
did the housing down there off Hoken Rock Road.
For the veterans.
So I think by doing regional projects, it allows us to do more. They certainly have regional impact. on all of these. And I think our point to talking about it today is maybe we can, if you have any questions of Jeff, you have questions of us, how we've done things and how, at least as chairman in Yarmouth, I would love to see us do more of these because you contribute, Yarmouth contributes, then we're asking for matching funds. We can do more projects together. So Jeff, now I'm going to throw it back to you if you want to talk about what you've doing in Dennis and any questions you have of us. I'm sure we have some of you.
Thanks. One of the things that's interesting to me, especially when it comes to recruitment, was why do people join the CPC? And I can start if you'd like. I joined the CPC because I was an applicant. We had some tennis courts that were in terrible shape. I played pickleball. And so after 2 years of discussing it with the CPC, probably about 5 years of discussing it in total, we redid the Wixom courts and put in a combination tennis pickleball courts. I was asked for some reason to join the CPC at that point, and here I am today. I'm also an advocate of affordable housing because I've seen how that can stress families with people close to me. And in summary, I think I make a difference on the CPC. I think it's a, thank God for Cape Cod towns our size, but I think the CPC is a great way to make a difference for the community. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, I've been on CPC to begin with. I came over from Conservation Commission. So the minute even the idea of the CPC was introduced, I go, if that ever goes through town meeting and it gets introduced, I want to be on that committee because it's all positive. I am a huge advocate of moving forward instead of dealing with the negativity. Like 28 looks like horrible. Nothing gets done with the historic. Nobody does anything with open space. For most of what we do is positive, and I think we need to keep doing that. And obviously, Dennis and Yarmouth were partners in the school system. At least last I knew we were. So I think working together, we can accomplish a lot more for both. And I'm not a big person. I don't believe in this town line stuff. You know, I grew up in Orleans. I went to Nauset. We had Truro, Eastham, Brewster, Orleans. We all got together and most of the stuff was done together. And I'd like to see more of that. And that's just my personal input. I'd like to hear from at least the other people on our committee. If you have any questions of Jeff, and somewhere maybe we can come to some type of agreement. Doesn't have to be a written policy, but when we have what we consider a regional project, maybe we touch base with each other before we move forward with it. So that's how we'd actually gotten to the point, Jeff, where we asked the cultural center to at least apply to you, because for the most part, we funded their project up to now, and it's good to the point. There's a lot of people in Dennis there, you know, a lot of members from Dennis there, just like I felt like when we did the Cape Playhouse, there's a lot of people I know, and I myself have been to many functions at the Cape Playhouse, and there's a lot of people from Yarmouth who go there. So it should, my personal opinion, it shouldn't be totally dropped on. It happens to be in Dennis, but Yarmouth certainly benefits from it.
I'm sorry, I was distracted there, Gary. I'm getting pings from my people that they've been trying to log on or be accepted into the meeting. So I think we have a problem with the link if you don't see that.
See ya. Dawn?
Dawn, are you seeing anybody
All right.
from Dennis that wants to
Let's do
join?
this. Yeah, I see them now as
There-
attendees. Okay.
Well, there's one. There's Brad. Hello, Brad.
Hello.
Regina.
Sorry,
that
I'm
should be
just
on the line. Henry
promoting them all to panelists so that they can participate.
I like getting promoted. Is there a raise?
Yeah, you're going to get twice what you got last week.
And I've got a phone number, so I
That's
can't
Henry
really.
Kelly.
It's pardon?
Yeah, it's probably Henry Kelly. And that Chris is Chris Foley. The Ron Bartolini great photo is Regina White.
That's, I'm.
All right,
I'm
very good.
apologies. That's, I don't know why I'm not showing, but that's a photo.
I think there's a couple of dots in the upper right-hand corner. If you put the cursor over that picture and it says join with video.
Chat, webinar, minimize, virtual, disconnect is all I see.
Don't hit the disconnect part.
Let's see, what's this one? Switch to gallery view. No,
Strange, unless
No.
this is set up as a unique Zoom meeting, you know, we're all using Zoom day after day. It's the first time that I've had this problem. There's something strange
Yeah.
here.
yeah, well, anyway.
Probably our account difference between Yarmouth and Dennis, who knows? I'm glad we got you guys on. I wasn't sure where y'all were. I didn't have any trouble. But nevertheless, so in the bottom right, it's Brad Bishop. The wonderful photo with a, looks like a grandchild, is Regina White, and Chris Foley. And the telephone icon on your bottom right, if your screen is the same as Henry Kelly from Dennis. Henry, can you hear us?
He's muted.
Somebody said before, let's hear it for face-to-face meetings. We're a few months away, but amen to that.
You can unmute yourself now, Henry, I think is his name.
Yes,
*6 to unmute.
Because it looks like he's phoned in, so obviously we're not going to get a picture of him, but
no,
should be able to talk. I have you unmuted.
we'll keep going anyway. As Brad said, we've done this before, but who knows? What we were talking about, those of you that just joined us, Gary talked a lot about the benefit of joint projects and the fact that we've already participated in some. And then we started to talk about why we joined the CPC. I guess Yarmouth so far has the youngest CPC member that any of us know of, unless somebody else knows a CPC. So we were trying to find out, how do we get more people by starting with what made you join? And I talked about making a difference. Gary talked about doing good things going forward. Who wants to say next why they joined? Looks like George.
George.
Hi, my first exposure to the CPA was after I retired, and I was able to check off one of my bucket list items, which was so I worked as a volunteer at the Taylor Bray Farm Community Archaeological Digs in 2017 and 2018. Always very interested in archaeology, and that led me to being asked to join the Historical Commission, where I now sit as the vice chair, and I'm the representative, to the CPC, and have broad interests as you, Jeff, with the housing, and see the good things that we can do and accomplish. So that's why I joined the CPC.
Well,
Paul.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm a member of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission. I joined that because I just wanted to get involved in something in the town. Not that I'm any expert on conservation issues, but I'm learning a lot. There's a lot of complicated material related to that commission. But they asked me also, there's an opening, a transfer of someone to another committee, and asked if I would join the CPC. And I, of course, have. And I've enjoyed it very much because, as I think Gary says, you get to try to direct some investment into some very worthwhile things that would go by the boards otherwise. And as far as regional approaches to things, I think it almost goes without saying that, certainly Yarmouth and Dennis are united in the school system. My kids went to the Dennis Yarmouth schools, and, they have a lot of fond memories of that and had a good education. But also, we live in a very small place in terms of our geography on Cape Cod, and we need to do things regionally. We can't draw the line at the town border. So I welcome the opportunity to work with Dennis and in other communities to enhance some of these projects that come up through the CPC. So thanks for getting together today.
Paul. Anybody else? Christine?
Debbie's up on top. Gary, you want to call it?
Christine's got her hand up.
Hi, I'm Christine Rosigliano. I'm chairman of the Open Space Committee and their representative to CPC. I was originally president of the Historical Society of Old Yarmouth when NSTAR bought a piece of property adjacent to our trails. And the people that were on Land Bank, which had done a wonderful job in acquiring properties all around our ponds and streams, had all retired. And to encourage NSTAR to sell the property to the town, I resigned from that board, came over and I joined Open Space. This has been a 12-year project. I'm still trying to acquire this piece of property. It's right at the bullseye of 800 acres of open space and conservation land. The whole purpose of open space is to protect properties that are adjacent to well fields, streams, etc., vista views. And my last project was the demolition of the Yankee Village Motel. That was a 30-year project that is almost near completion. One park was a discotheque that burned down and the town made it a park. On the other side of the motel was another old building that they tore down, made another park, and the motel was right in the middle. So we tore that down. It's going to produce a beautiful vista view as you drive in from Hyannis. It'll be one of the few places on Route 28 where you'll be able to see water. So all of these reasons in protecting water, with Dennis, we have a lot of water in common, all the way from Corporation Beach and all the way down the Bass River. This year there's a project before us trying to protect the water in Mill Pond. So, it's all about water, whether the water is our drinking water, whether the water is protecting the ponds and streams, or even the sewers. All of this is protecting our drinking water here on the Cape.
I think Debbie had her hand up too.
Yes,
Debbie?
I'm a rec commissioner for 30 plus years. So my forte is kids and moving forward and helping the community out. Like Paul, I was asked to go on CPA, and I'm glad I came on because there's a lot to be done and discussed. And like Gary said, we need younger people. Not that I'm young, believe me. 6 children, 8 grandchildren. So, but I would like to see things go forward and work with Dennis. And as a coach for Yarmouth for recreation, I got very involved with having Dennis kids come over to Yarmouth just so that we can get together and there wouldn't be any conflict or anything. So I'm going forward with you guys. So I look forward to it.
So
Want to speak next, Brad?
For me,
Sure.
actually, I'm the
Oh, I'm
last.
sorry, Liz. Good for you.
Come on. All right. So yes, I am the youngest of the CPC, but I am fairly extensively knowledgeable on regional issues. So I was a former employee of the town of Yarmouth for 5 years in the town manager's office. And I also was a former resident of the town of Dennis for 10 years. I just moved into Yarmouth 3 years ago. So that then spurred into my participation for boards and committees, because I actually work for the town of Barnstable as the Assistant Director of Planning and Development for the last 3 years. And prior to that, I was the Consumer Affairs Director for them for 4 years. So I've been with Barnstable for 7 and Yarmouth before that for 5. And before that, I was in Wellfleet for 3. And before that, I was in Provincetown for 4. So talk about regional issues and knowledgeable. I know that the boundaries are really just man-made, and in theoretical. So that is really important to me, and having that wide range, and that's where my participation in planning comes in. So I am the vice chair of the planning board for Yarmouth, and so that's how I contribute to CPC. So thank you, and I look forward to hearing all of your stories as well. Thank you.
Thanks for speaking up, Liz.
Jeff,
Brad?
So,
Go
Brad?
ahead.
Sure. I sit on the Town of Dennis Planning Board. I've been there for 5 years, and before that, I was the chairman of a planning board in East Greenwich, Rhode Island. So planning is my experience as a volunteer. The way I got onto the CPC was very simple. Doria Damano, our esteemed former chair, left the CPC. We needed a person, and there I was playing on my phone, and everybody stepped back, and before I knew it, I was assigned.
All right. Next,
Regina, do you want to go next?
Yes, I am. I'm a designate from the Dennis Housing Authority. I worked in housing and homelessness and hunger before I retired, and after retirement, when I came to Dennis, I joined the Dennis Municipal Housing Trust, and from there went to the Dennis Housing Authority, and from the Housing Authority, I'm currently on the Housing Authority and am the delegate from the authority to the CPC.
Great, thanks. Chris, I guess you're next.
Frank Dahlstrom made me. So I in my previous life, I was the chief financial officer of a 50-man medical practice in Connecticut. And when I came here, I was looking for a way to put some of that to work. Frank recruited me for those financial skills so that I could look at and help with the numbers on CPC. It seemed like a good fit because CPC seems to do the things that are special, not just routine to the town, and allows us to have a nicer place to live. So that's my story.
Maybe Henry Kelly can hear us and respond. I don't know if he's unmuted or not yet.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Henry.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. Prior to CPC, we had a land bank legislation, and I was on the land bank committee. So in 2005, when that committee transitioned into CPC, I was continued as a member into this successor group. I serve as an at-large member, not representing any particular committee or interest group, by appointment of the selectmen. And what I hope I bring to the committee is an overall general knowledge of the operations of the town, because I have served on a wide variety of committees and commissions over a long period of time. So I'm the old timer who every once in a while remembers something that he hopes could be helpful.
Oh, what, Henry, if you don't mind me asking, how is Tom?
Tom is quite well, and I can only tell you that notwithstanding the normal vicissitudes of old age, he has that fighting spirit of a Marine that will always be with him. And if anybody knows him, you will know what I mean.
And just let him know that we miss him. I miss him. So
I miss him.
he needs to know that.
Thank you.
He can call me anytime. He knows that.
Thank you.
All right. So I guess we kind of know where everybody's coming from. I think basically maybe we should talk about as we go forward, Jeff. I think it would be important. I think we all agree that we like the concept of regional projects. It would be nicer to have more towns involved with what we're doing. I think, at least be my feeling as a matter of policy, if we have a project that comes before us that we think has some regional benefit to Dennis, that we would inform you that we're going to ask them to apply to you. And my feeling would be same thing with you and Dennis. If you have somebody coming before you on their application and you would like to have them apply to Yarmouth, that you let us know that you've asked that. Does anybody, any comment? How does everybody feel about that?
Gary, I think it's a great idea. I think one of the things we struggle with is how could we create and execute any strategy? In my experience, and maybe my incorrect view, it looks like applications come in. We have some regulars, you know, we have our recreation department and our historical group, especially in the area of affordable housing. In some of each of the categories, we wait for an application to come in. It seems a little bit random, and I can't think of what to do about that. Although I agree with what you've said, if we do see that come in, I don't know how to promote regional projects. I think your idea about how to react to them is a great one.
I don't think we need to promote them. I think they're just going to happen as a matter of fact, you know, and I forgot we also have the veterans housing, which is, I mean, in principle, we agreed to go forward and give them funding also. We're still working on certain aspects of what we feel we can fund with that to make sure it's legally correct. But I think if somebody comes before you and you feel as a committee that it might have some benefit to both towns, I think it would behoove us all to have you encourage them to apply to Yarmouth. I can't tell you we'd say yes or no, but let us know that you feel it's worthy of coming to Yarmouth and that you have asked the applicant to do so. And I think we in Yarmouth should do the same with you.
Anybody else?
Gary, I'm sorry, would you expand on the legal problems you think there are in funding the vets?
Well, yeah, here's the thing. First of all, with CPC, you can't reimburse. So if they have a project that they've already done, this was and it's not a problem. We just have to get through it. So if they've already built something, they can't apply to us and then we reimburse them for something's already done. And you can imagine how that would go. You'd have people coming in going, well, 10 years ago, we built this entryway and now we're asking for money for it. You know, if it's already done, they can't apply for it. That's part of the CPC law. You can't reimburse. So they have, my feeling is they can only apply for projects on the housing thing that have not been done. So what we would do is approve it, then they submit the bills to Dawn, and then we pay them for projects as they go forward. But we can't either reimburse for projects already done.
Christine,
thanks.
Christine?
Yeah, Gary, I think we might want to encourage applicants to, if we think it's a regional type project, to come before the committee before the deadline, so we can tell them that we think it's a regional project and you should be applying to XYZ towns so that they don't miss a deadline and then, you know, further delay their project.
And, you know, and like I said, I'm going to say the hardest one for me in the time I've been here was the conservation restriction for ARC on at Chapin. But definitely, I mean, that is a Dennis project. But I had spent a lot of time politicking for us to contribute our part, because there is a huge benefit to Yarmouth because of the vista we get from Bass Hole and on the north side looking over top of Chapin. And, you know, it went through the county. Dan Wolf kind of headed it, but we actually got to the point where we all agreed on that. And I still believe, even to this day, you could make a case there's more of a benefit to the town of Yarmouth than to Dennis for preserving that stretch of beach. George?
To Christine's point, one of the casualties of COVID are the annual meetings that we have in and around the time that we're asking for applications. So going forward, and whether we do it by Zoom or we can do it face to face, we should probably consider letting Dennis know when our annual meeting is, so that because at times we have different ask dates, if you will, so we can, coordinate better, along that line. And also, one of the things we did this year to get a sense of demand going forward, if folks couldn't get an application together, what we asked them to do is submit a letter of intent, just to give us an idea of what they're thinking of, some estimated cost. And we did this pretty seriously a year ago when it looked like the Yarmouth CPC was going to be cut from 3% down to possibly 1.5% to 2%. So part of our, information that we gathered was to do a 3-year out projection on demand, and that helps obviously looking forward.
That's a great point, George. So I think, Jeff, you should, as a committee, take that under advisement. That was how it came about. It was suggested that maybe CPC in Yarmouth had seen its heyday and there were not going to be that many projects on the future, when in fact it's quite the opposite, and the state funding has increased. So that's why we as a committee said, well, let's get together a letter of intents from people and projects that we see coming down the pipeline that they're going to be asking us for money for. And then when the selectmen actually see that, you're going to go, most of these projects are never going to go forward if you cut CPC, which is how we were able to actually keep it at the 3%. And to let you know, I don't know if you know in Dennis, so as a compromise, because the wastewater committee needs to be funding, what we agreed to do as a committee, we gave an exemption, and this came from the coalition. They suggested it, like, well, instead of cutting it from 3 to 2, where you lose your state match, you can do a $100,000 exemption, which means the first $100,000 of your assessment is not, doesn't go through CPC. So you deduct 100,000 and the actual amount of money saved in tax revenue to the taxpayer ended up being the same as a 1% cut. But what we were able to do is then we kept the state match.
I was going to ask you how much revenue you think you lost as a result, and you thought it was about 1%.
About $500,000. But the state match is now $400,000. So either way, it was a net gain over what we'd done if we reduced the one from 3 to 2%. So
Chris, you have your...
I'm sorry, but it's a process question. We have a defined date when applications are supposed to be in, which is the last Friday of May by the close of business. And then we take all of those applications under advisement and make a recommendation to special town meeting in October to fund those that we see fit. Do you all have the same hard line, or do you have rolling applications, or exactly how do you deal with your applications?
No, we do have the same hard line. What we changed last year in this town, they've changed it now to 2 annual town meetings. So we're pretty close to you now. I believe we're May and October, but we do have it's not a rolling application. We have a deadline for each of them. You need to get in for that before we make the recommendation to bring it, say, to the fall. I don't know what our deadline is for the fall. Dawn, do you remember what that is? It used to be in December for getting to the Maytown meeting.
Yeah, I don't have it off the top of my head, but
before
Christmas.
They are hardline deadlines. It's not.
You have 2 6-month funding cycles instead of 1 12-month.
We're getting used to that, but we didn't have it last year.
Okay.
So it created a whole mess because, we did that. They decided to go to 2 town meetings, and then they did 2 town meetings during COVID, and then people couldn't get the applications in, so we're just getting used to it. But in theory, when all this gets by, there will be 2 town meetings, 2 hard deadlines that we either approve it or not.
Are you focusing yourself that it has to be in that 6-month cycle, or are you allowing yourself to
Well-
defer past that meeting to gather more information and then fund it in the next cycle, or have you gotten that far?
Last town meeting, which we had in October, because they felt nobody was going to be at town meeting, more than, I'm going to say 75% of them got postponed to the next cycle, which will be in the spring, because I mean, this was myself and the committee, we felt with this amount of money for these projects, if we're going to have a town meeting that doesn't have great attendance, I would like to see as much taxpayer input as possible. So we postponed them to the spring.
Thanks.
So it's like a rolling cycle with the COVID and everything else. And now 2 town meetings. We've always been a huge advocate in Yarmouth of this is essentially, it's a taxpayer decision. So if you're going to have a town meeting where you have 100 people there, I really don't want $2 million projects coming in there. Anybody else?
Anybody else on challenges that you're facing or that we all face?
Those are the biggest challenge we had in the past year was coming forward, trying to reduce CPC from 3 to 2. So we spent a lot of time and effort trying to keep it at 3. And at least for this year, we were successful. Could it happen again next year? Yes. But we had, there were people like on the finance committee going, well, you might as well do it because the state funding's going to be cut. Well, that is not going to be the case. I'm sure, as you know, even in this past month, the registry receipts have been record. So there's going to be more money than ever from the state match. So that's a rolling thing, because whoever thought the real estate market would take off the way it has? I didn't, but it has. And that's where the state match CPC money comes from.
Brad, I think Brad's been trying to get in there.
Just a small point, maybe a recommendation. We should cross the email invites from our committee to all of your members and your committee to all of our members, so that on those occasions we can just come in as if we were a member of the public and see how you're doing things.
Great idea.
Problem doing. I think the more transparent we are with our taxpayers, and obviously our taxpayers share a lot. We're sharing the school committee. We may be the same thing with wastewater. That's why the regional aspect of this, to me, is important. That, like, as Liz says, they're arbitrary town lines, but that's not what a community is. And we are the Community Preservation Committee. So I have no problem from my aspect of sharing anything all the time with you about when our meetings are, when our town meeting dates are, and our deadlines for applications. So that, Don, you wouldn't have any problem doing that for them, right?
It's a matter of public record. When do you meet Wednesdays? Is this your normal meeting time?
Yes, 3 o'clock.
The only challenge that we have is getting people to commit to more meetings, but it's certainly voluntary. We are meeting every other Monday at 3 o'clock as well. First and third Monday, it's on the town calendar. Let's see how that goes based on the individual's desire to learn more. I think perhaps too, if you're up for it, sharing emails with each other. Some of us have very common interests. We've got a great guy new to us on historical. Brad is in planning, maybe along the lines of what Liz has been talking about. Debbie and I, friends of recreation, certainly. Christine, open space. affordable housing. So I think, yeah, sharing each other's emails can't hurt either. Brad?
Just a quick point. I think you said the meetings start at 3, and I believe we actually have been starting at 3:30. Of
Yeah,
course,
thanks, Brad.
it's a lonely 30 minutes. That first 30 minutes is just really
Get a lot
quiet.
done though, don't you?
I get a lot done, absolutely.
Well, what we've done in the past, over the past 10 years, and normally we try, because we were having one town meeting, which was in the spring. So we kind of took the summers off with our deadline for applications being in September. And then we'd review them and we'd decide on them before December. But all this is ongoing and changing. The selectmen themselves and the town administrators really don't want us bringing a lot of projects to the fall, but we get along well, but CPC can function on its own. So if we as a committee feel it warrants bringing it to the fall, we're going to do that. Because if sometimes waiting 6 months, the cost of a project can go up substantially. So
Just
we
to that
take it
point,
each
we
one
had
on
an
its own.
applicant, we had an applicant come before us at planning this past Monday who said that the cost of wood in some like 1,000 linear board feet has gone up from, like order of magnitude 400 to 900 in the last 12 months.
Wow.
That's happened to us also. It happened to us with the pickleball courts with the cost of the asphalt. And we had to go back to town meeting again and ask for more money because the cost of it went up, which is not a good policy to do, to fund a project and then have to go back and ask for more money. But if you wait a year, that can certainly happen. Christine?
Yeah, I mean, whatever is ready will go on the earliest town meeting possible, except for COVID delayed things, But applicants have to realize that the more complete their application is, the faster it's going to be processed. And we get a lot of applications that are not complete. So when we work with them, they're waiting for letters of recommendation from either other committees or commissions, et cetera. If that application comes in complete, it'll move along to the earliest town meeting.
Regina?
In terms of challenges, how do you have a way of dealing with projects that come to you from town departments or offices? Do you require or suggest that the selectmen be involved, or do they have to have something from the town manager or administrator that approves that application? Or as long as it is compliant with CPA, do you review it just like any other application from any outside organization? Do you handle town departments differently in terms of their applications?
If you can see all of us, Gina, you can see everybody on the Yarmouth has a smirk on their face because I don't have the answer for you yet, but we try to handle them the same, but we've had a problem with them the town applications have tended to be less complete than the private ones. And we're working on that. So yes, my opinion, they should be handled the same, under the same microscope, with the same amount of input that goes into it. And over the past year, because all the town departments are understaffed, it's been an issue. And it's a good point, but anybody on our committee can chime in. I don't want to be the bad guy, but this has been an issue for us this past year.
Yeah.
Well, let me actually jump in just before you. In terms of departments, do you ever look at an application and think, wait a minute, this is town funding. This should be the town's responsibility, or should be in the town's budget. We had an application where the proposer said, well, we have to do this because the town is in legal jeopardy. I'm like, well, how is, so anyway, I'll leave it at that. I'm just saying, sometimes I struggle, and we all have discussed in this last year, requiring that the select board sign off on applications that come from town departments. But that's what I consider a significant challenge.
Yes, and we're going to concur with you. We're going through the same thing ourselves here in Yarmouth. Paul, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I don't know if you see me anymore. My computer's kind of doing funny things, but I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I think Gary's right. You know, I think that we've been working with town departments to talk about their applications and some of the pitfalls that might arise as a result of incomplete information. I have to say, I think that the town departments have been cooperative, and they see that maybe it's the times or something that they really need to, despite the lack of personnel, maybe need to have applications as complete as people from, let's say, private sources. So just to confirm what Gary is saying, it's a situation we've been having some interesting conversations about. It's interesting to me, and maybe a little reassuring that maybe you experience the same thing in Dennis. But I think it's a very important aspect of things because it is taxpayer money, and we don't want to create any situation where, and this may be too harsh, but that the CPA money looks like some sort of a slush fund for the town departments. It
Right.
really isn't.
Right.
And so, yeah, it is something that's been very interesting to work on.
Mhm.
Challenge for all of us. And, you know, I let Liz talk and then Christine, but basically, you know, we're not a political committee, and you have to follow your conscience.
Mhm.
And we've had a hard time with this the past year, as Paul said, and we'll continue to debate this. And it's not the town departments themselves. It gets into the political aspect, which is why when CPA was created, it was created in such a fact that we're not supposed to be influenced by town politics. But of course that comes into play with it. It does. It's a reality. Liz, I think you were next.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it is important, though, to make sure that any town application is aligned, that they're the agents of the elected officials. And it should be aligned with the goals and the projects that also are cross-examined with capital projects and capital budget items. So I think it is a valid point that Dennis brings up, that there should be a sign off if it is a town project. It should be signed off through the proper channels, that it falls within CPC or it is aligned with the town community goals and the priorities that are set, and that there is no capital, there's no capital resources that they can tap into either, or grant funding even, that they have those opportunities that they can look for that no other applicant can apply for.
Christine?
Yes,
Christine?
in line with the capital projects, you know, many times CPA is just the seed money to start a project off, like affordable housing or a park. I'm going to make up some numbers, but like affordable housing, if we put up $2 million, it may bring in $10 million worth of grants, you know, from the federal and state agencies, you know, so we're the seed money, for, you know, as a startup part of the project. So, you know, to use the CPA money, and I think many times we think it's well worth the investment in order to get, you know, a much larger project completed.
I think, you know, it might be a good idea. Don, we have all those figures that we put together in form about how much money we put up, how much the state has matched, and the seed money with the matching funds. So what when you see the figures, it's hugely impressive. I think it's like 3 times what we put up is what is matched on all projects. And that is one of our prime goals on every project, to try and be seed money and then get matching funds from other sources, including the state, including the federal government. And that's why I think it's important that we go forward on regional projects, because you can multiply all this. So a $1 million project, as Christine says, can be a $10 million project by us all working together.
That I find that spectacular. Could you share the criteria you use to get to those numbers with us so that we can do it on our projects? I'd
Yeah.
love to do that with Dennis's numbers.
I think, Don, if you could share with them what we already have on that and get that out to them. and
I
then
will, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely
But
do that. I
public-
know it's,
And each one, Chris, we take on its own. So
Yeah.
sometimes we know there isn't going to be any matching funds, but we try and investigate every opportunity. You know, when you go to Mass Historic, Mass Cultural, there's funds there every year. So when people come to us with a historic project, we go, did you apply to Mass Cultural? Did you apply to Mass Historic? And we make that mandatory. And it's kind of like when we got to the Cultural Center, did you apply to Dennis?
No, I understand exactly what you see, and I'm seeing in my mind's eye how many grants have come, especially in the affordable housing scenario, for significant amounts of money that become available because people can work towards it. And they use the CPC grant as a selling point. We already have X amount of dollars in hand from the town. We would like help from you. But to quantify that would be wonderful to sell those kind of projects. So thank you.
Hey, Gary? Go, Henry Kelly, go ahead.
I did not ask for recognition. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay. I have a question, two-part question, if you don't mind. Do you currently give all your allocation for affordable housing to your trust? And do you require that other town departments or committees that might be affiliated with affordable housing weigh in before you approve a project? And so if you give it all to the trust, you don't have to answer the second question.
I know, but we try and keep this as open and available to the taxpayer as possible. So we've been funding our trust every year to the tune of approximately 280,000. But other projects, we kind of keep them out of the trust so they fall on their own merits. Because as you said, once you give it to the trust, it's given to them at their discretion. So the taxpayers truly don't have input at town meeting. So on large projects that are outside of that, we try and let them fall in their own merits and bring them forward as separate. So our annual contribution for the trust has been normally around the 280, 230, and that's for their projects. And the reason for developing the trust, I'm sure the same with you and Dennis, is sometimes if you got to wait a year on a great project, you're going to lose it unless you have the money available in the Affordable Housing Trust.
So Gary, my second part of the question was, if we have a private party that has an element of their project for affordable housing, how much do you require that planning or your trust or any other, conservation could weigh in as well? Do they all have to have their work done? Do they all have to weigh in before you'll approve an application?
Most times we ask for it. And I can't think of anywhere we haven't gotten their input. Sometimes they don't want to, like I'm going to say with your Dennis Veterans Housing, we asked for input from our housing authority and they didn't feel that they needed to chime in on it. So I believe I'm correct on that, right, Don? They don't have any input into that as of.
no, no, I know that Mary Wagon, the housing coordinator, has spoken with Adam and kind of asked for certain specific information that is relative to subsidized housing, but that hasn't really offered any commentary on the
But
project itself.
We do always ask for it.
Can you get closer? We lost your mic, Gary.
We always ask for it.
I got one more question, then I'll be quiet for a little bit. What do you do with letters of protest? If you have a particular project that people don't like, I mean, obviously, I assume you accept them as part of the public record, but
That's how we would do it. I can say we're pretty lucky we haven't had that. As you know, when I first got on here, there was a huge case, I believe it was in Ashland or something, about soccer fields where the
AstroTurf maybe.
yeah, well, we know AstroTurf is out, but this was something in regards to that where the town had to return the money. And we've gone out of our way to make sure that doesn't happen. So you got to be really careful. You know, they have a chart at the state level about what you can fund and what you can't do for each category. We just pulled it up again last week, right, Don? Everybody has it. And it's very helpful so that even if somebody has a reason to protest on a legal issue, then you have a problem. If you follow what you can do and it goes through town meeting, I guess they could protest all they want, but they really wouldn't have anything to stand on. You got to be very careful what you fund and don't. That's why I was talking about with the Dennis veterans there. We want to make sure that we're not funding something that's reimbursable, because that would have legal ramifications. Anybody?
Well, I'm interested to hear what Dennis does for that, and also the previous question about your affordable housing and how much money you allot towards your housing.
So I'll do them in the order you asked them, which is the reverse of what I did. We have, for the first time in my short tenure, which is about 3 years, several letters of protest about an affordable housing project, partly affordable. I'm surprised we don't have more, haven't had more in the past. Obviously it's a citizen who has the right to speak, and we distribute those letters to everybody on the committee, and we'll consider those and make our decisions, you know, without being arbitrary, capricious, or in bad faith. But we make the decision nonetheless. I'm torn. I feel this is more personal maybe than legal, but maybe it's legal. I feel that we're committed to support affordable housing when it's lawful, even though each committee member has their the right to their opinion about a particular project. We were designated under the CPA to have money to spend on affordable housing. Doesn't mean we have to spend it all. Doesn't mean we have to support a particular project, but if we're not as enthusiastic about affordable housing as everybody other category, I think we need to look in the mirror a little bit. This is just me talking right now. We have not recently funded our trust. There's been a change in membership in the trust. We had given them money in the past, and recently we've said to them, here's some money, but come back to us and tell us what you're going to do and how you're going to do it if you want more. We're waiting to hear their great ideas. I don't think there's a prejudice against affordable housing, but we haven't got, in my opinion, the enthusiasm or the feedback from our trust that we wanted to continue to fund them. I think that the concept of the trust is a fantastic idea. I love the fact that another entity can support the concept for us, but just to give them money and not know exactly how it was going to work was our problem. We've kind of run into a roadblock there. Or a speed bump, it's a better way to look at it. Anybody else from Dennis on the affordable housing issue?
Get into the affordable housing, Jeff, you're always going to get the not in my backyard. That's going to happen with pretty much every project. And we all have to deal with that. I can, you know, for a few years, Yarmouth got a bad name in the press about not supporting affordable housing. But the biggest chunk of our pie for CPA has gone to affordable housing.
Liz, did we answer your question too?
Had some great affordable housing projects in the town of Yarmouth in the past few years. Very proud of them. And that's, You know, because we have a strong trust and because we have Mary Wigman. I mean, she's great in dealing with people
Yeah.
and presentations. That's a big part of it. You got to sell it to the neighborhood. It's a tough sell sometimes, but it can be done.
I'm going to suggest,
Our-
Gary, if you could pass along the thought, I'm going to suggest that our DMAT contact yours. And if Mary is the person that's the primary contact, that would be great. I don't think, they'll do what they want to do, but there's got to be at least as much benefit as we've seen on this call for them to talk to each other.
Yeah, you would enjoy talking with Mary. Nobody done more for housing in this town than she has.
That's
And-
smart.
Gina?
And if I could say, there's no one probably who's done more for Dennis Housing than Mary Wagon. She works with us very closely, and she's a terrific cheerleader. The Housing Trust has had some challenges here in Dennis. It isn't totally the Housing Trust that's on the block here. I'm just going to leave it at that. But Mary is terrific, and we will continue to reach out to her. Thank you.
Brad wanted to say something.
Well, just a couple of random observations on affordable housing. We've heard from I think our planning director, that one of the biggest challenges is getting a group of people who are willing to be vocal and to communicate to members of the town the benefits of affordable housing, because I think you have to overcome some misconceptions and prejudices and other things. You'll still have, not in my backyard, but at least you won't have people thinking that you're going to have 60 people in a unit selling drugs day and night.
Yep.
And I wonder if you've had any experience with that sort of a communication plan.
Yes, and go back to, you need a Mary Wegman,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Everybody agree
Yeah.
with that? I mean, she is great
Yeah.
in getting that through to the community. That our mandate, and it is for you and Dennis, to get to 10%. You think
Right.
we'll ever see that?
Well,
That's
we
a
won't if
challenge.
we don't start chipping away at it every single chance we get.
We've been chipping away with it in Yarmouth. We have.
My second question is really more of an observation, and I'm still trying to develop this myself for the CPC group and maybe even the planning board. And that is sort of, what is the value of a capital A affordable unit to the town? And if I could establish that in some relatively rigorous way, then it would maybe allow CPC, for example, to say, we will fund proposals for affordable housing, capital A, to the tune of X thousand dollars per unit going forward. It takes a lot of the politics, a lot of the, the decision-making out of it. Any thoughts on that topic?
Well, say, years ago, we kind of came up with a rough guideline of approximately $30,000 per unit. And we just use that as a guideline, not as a hard and fast rule. But,
That might, if it was several years ago, that might now be more like 40,000, given cost increases and other things.
Could be, but we've done so many large affordable housing projects in the past few years, it really hasn't come up. But that's where we had started. And some private enterprises that came to us, we applied that to them, and they withdrew because they couldn't meet that.
You
So
mean the criteria, or the money that you were offering was insufficient for them to go forward?
The money we were offering was insufficient for them to, because you can't be throwing $100,000 per unit at an affordable housing project.
I agree.
So I guess as a committee, you can talk about, well, what guidelines should you use? And we can certainly share Mary with you, her input. That's what we've used in Yarmouth. And, Mary's been great, but we also have Bob Lawton, who's on the Housing Trust, who used to be our town administrator, and who I'm sure most of you know. He could sell anything to anybody, and he's the nicest guy, and he's totally committed. He doesn't have a dishonest bone in his body, and he's been a huge advocate for affordable housing along with Mary. And we've been lucky to have them both.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anybody, anything else?
may be getting to be time to call it a evening. Doesn't mean we can't do it again sometime, though.
Be glad to do it anytime you want to. I think it's been very helpful to even, at least as far as policy, realize that we're probably on the same page. And hopefully over the next few years, we can do a lot more because, you know, myself, I'm a huge advocate of CPC and what it's done. You know, everybody wants to take the town money and throw it at wastewater. But I use this, my committee's heard my speech 100 times. If you were running a business and your septic system was failing and you had to put a new septic in, would you take your entire marketing budget and throw it into the septic system? Your business wouldn't survive.
That's a shitty idea.
Good point.
Comedian too. George was trying to speak, I think.
I just have to say that this was the most productive 20-minute meeting that I've had in a long time. Thank you, guys. This was wonderful.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, thank you, Yarmouth. We'll look at the next few weeks is going to be busy for us. Our town meeting's going to be now Saturday, the 8th, I think, if I have the date right. But maybe we'll have a little time after that to do this again.
That'd be great.
Love to.
Does Debbie want to say something before we go?
Yep.
Can't hear you, Debbie.
I think you're muted, Deb.
Okay. I want to thank Jeff for coming, and it was very interesting. I got a lot of information out of that, and I personally would love to meet again and see where we all stand.
Certainly share a lot of recreation programs between the two towns, that's for sure, and it's great.
Yep,
You know, our kids end up in high school playing on the same teams.
exactly.
Amen. When I look at somebody that's a great citizen, I can't tell you what town they were born in or what town they live in. I just see them as a person. That's the way it should be.
Yep.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Especially you all in
Thanks, guys.
Yarmouth, and thanks to the people in Dennis too for taking some time out of their schedule.
Thanks
Thanks,
you all,
everybody.
and you got a big job to do. Stay with it. It's fun in the end.
Sure is. It sure is. Thank you all.
Stay
Bye-bye.
safe.
Thanks,
all.
take care.
Thank you.
Right, Don. So I guess in the packet, next we'd have the project updates. We have a letter of support from the Yarmouth Historic and for the, I guess it's on the Cultural Center, correct?
We don't have them in hand yet, but they are being drafted from the Historic Commission to in regards to Taylor Bray Farm and the Baxter Grist Mill and the Cultural Center, right, George? That was at your meeting last week.
Yes, that's correct. You know, every one of them passed. You know, there was one contingency on the Cultural Center, which is, and we've asked for this before, is to, when they have them, the architectural drawings on the doors. But it's all a go.
You know, when we had Dennis on purpose, we did not discuss the Cultural Center because I don't think it's our job to influence their decision on it.
Mhm.
So
Agreed.
whatever they decide, it's fine. We'll still make our own decisions. But hopefully this only helps as we go forward on our regional projects. So is it next to coalition dues, Don?
It is,
Because
yeah.
we
We got
have
our
we have
bills
a
from the coalition.
Which is how much?
Yep, $4,350, so it stayed the same as last year.
Here, we need to vote on this. So anybody has any questions about what they do and how they do it?
Yeah, I don't know if, well, Debbie, maybe you already know, I think Liz is probably familiar with what the coalition does, but I've got some information so I can answer questions if anybody has them.
I'd say if nothing else, you know, this whole $100,000 exemption, which saved the 1%, the idea came from them. And I spent a long time on the phone with them, and I know Karen did. And that's where this $100,000 exemption came from. And I think it saved us on that.
And they also
Not a-
pushed they pushed hard for the increase in filing fees or recording fees at the registry.
Yeah.
Which has benefited CPA as well. So they do work, they do some stuff.
Yeah, we call them, they'll always get back to us and they'll talk to us about anything we have an opinion on. George?
So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the $4,350 as an appropriate dues and approve it.
Second.
George, Christine, are you seconding?
Second.
Seconded by Christine. We'll do a
Very
roll
good.
call. Vote on that. Gary? Aye. George?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Debbie? Muted.
I could see it.
I could see it. Liz
Aye.
and Christine.
Aye.
Okay. So,
Aye.
got it. So
Thank you very much.
unanimously, we have that. And next we have important dates, which is in your packet. Any discussion? What do you want to talk about? Any questions?
Well, I'm just going to point out, we're going to try to have the articles drafted, obviously, by February 23rd. And so I'm planning to have them ready for you all to look at before then. But I would,
And what you and I talked about earlier, Don, to
Mhm.
try and save some time, I thought I would meet with Karen and Don and we have to decide on the money amounts, what bucket they're coming out of. So I think we were going to meet and recommend what buckets they come out of instead of discussing each one. So I'd just like, if all of you are okay with that, then we'd bring it up as a article, we'd vote on it if we want to make changes then, but instead of discussing every one, I will do it with Karen and Don. We'll have a suggestion and then we'll run it by all of you. Anybody not like that
Sounds good.
idea?
Sounds
That's
fine.
good.
and
And-
actually what we have put together is what I set out last week in the packet. So if you have it, great. If you don't have it, I can easily resend it. That's kind of the starting point, the first shot that Karen and I took at it. And again, Gary and I and Karen will look at it again, but you should be able to get some idea based on last week's packet.
Shouldn't be that difficult. Right. So next we have staff and committee updates, everybody with some new updates. Christine, I still want to keep pushing on Yankee Village.
Yes,
We all have to keep pushing to keep that moving forward.
I would like that to open up this summer,
I would too. Don, do we know where I consider the hardest thing there is doing the bridge.
Absolutely. And I would ask Paul, I haven't touched base with Kelly recently because that's really the driver of what can be done there, is the conservation
Yeah.
restrictions, not in the legal term, but that's going to determine how much can get done. Has that come up at any Concom meetings?
No, not that I recall, but there's a meeting tomorrow and I could ask about it.
Oh, that would be great.
It would be nice if you could ask about it, Paul, because, I agree with Christine. That's going to be the biggest.
We also
biggest
need, I
hur-
think,
hur-
permission from the state to clear out the stream because it's within so many feet, of the water. AmeriCorps had done some pruning, but they had to stop when you got near the stream. There's a tree across the stream, there's garbage in the stream, etc. So besides the bridge going over the stream, we do need to prune and clear out the debris that's in the stream.
It gets cleaned out. It's going to be a beautiful stream.
Oh, yeah.
You pictured it.
I mean, there's a bucket in this stream. I mean, there's garbage down there,
So you're looking for information regarding doing that kind of work along there, right?
You need state approval, I believe.
I'm sorry?
Conservation, I don't know, Kelly is the one that would know.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it has to come from conservation. Obviously Kelly's by herself, so it's really hard for her to do this, and hopefully we can get somebody to help her this coming year, but
Yeah.
just,
Okay.
you know, let you guys know and Kelly know, it's kind of a priority on our part to keep this going forward, and anything we can do to help.
I'll send a memo out to, you know, Karen and Kelly tomorrow, itemizing all the things that have to be completed. There was an initial draft of what the park would look at, where the pathways would go, et cetera. Low-level plantings, they have to send out an RFP, I assume, for that. The bridge, the cleaning up the stream, et cetera, you know.
So I didn't hear, has the plan been approved by the state? Or?
No.
No, okay.
I don't think there is a plan yet. It's a lot of
It's
work.
only a
but-
draft. There was a draft a
Yeah.
year and a half ago.
lot of work to complete that plan, but I think we need to just keep telling them it's a priority of ours to push it forward and anything we can do to help.
Yeah, demolition was a year ago November, so it's 14, 15 months since the demolition.
Yeah, if you would send a message to Kelly and just specifically state what you're looking for, then I could, I'm
Yeah.
sure it'll come up in the meeting. If it doesn't, I could check with Kelly to see if she did get that
Yeah.
information, and then we could start working on it.
I'll copy,
Maybe-
I'll copy you too, Paul.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Yeah, Christine, if you can put that together with Don and send it from our committee, just whatever you feel needs to be done, and just let them know it. We'd love to see it get open this summer.
Yeah, there has to be a couple trees have to come down between the eastern park to connect that pathway, you know, through the middle part, the middle section.
So it would have to probably go through that whole process of notice of intent, et cetera.
Yes.
And so that would be, I guess, the thing to ask Kelly about, is specifically what needs to be done to put that together so that work can begin.
Yeah, I mean, if not this meeting, if she can prepare it for the next meeting.
Exactly. Yeah, it probably won't be in this meeting. It wouldn't
Right,
be able to go on the agenda that quickly.
right.
Bullet points so
Thank you,
she
Paul.
knows what she's looking at.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Is just as a side note, when it snowed out when was it, last week, I went down to down behind Crab Creek where we all took the tour there.
Oh, yeah.
There were 2 eagles there.
Yeah.
So I don't want you all running down there because we want to scare them off. They see you coming, but they're pretty incredible to watch. They're full bald eagles, and there's also a immature bald eagle there. So there's
Oh,
like 3 around there.
wow.
And it's pretty cool to go see it.
Local
And
photographers.
I would just mention that I don't know how many people tuned in to the Board of Selectmen's meeting, but I think you got a good, if you did, you got a good sense of how the Board of Selectmen and the Rec Commission are grappling with the Sandy Pond question. And Karen is working on a memo that'll be going out this week, kind of summarizing what happened during the meeting.
Yeah, Debbie and I were there, so.
I saw that, yeah.
I watched the whole thing.
Gary watched it.
I did also.
I watched it.
Yeah,
So I think we're kind of all getting onto the same page is the feeling I had.
Finally, Deb,
Yes,
Yep.
I just want to take this opportunity and thank Liz for backing me up, because I had trouble with my computer, and I'm new to this. So between her and Dorcas, it worked out well. And I'm on an awful lot of committees, but now that I'm on this committee, I really like it. You know, I'm on the rec committee, I'm on the diversion program, on the substance abuse committee, you know, all this stuff. So it's, you know, the Yarmouth PD, I'm one of the directors for the race there, a Eucharist minister. But I got to tell you, I'm relaxed here talking with you people.
does that mean we're your favorite, Deb?
Well, no,
Nice.
recreation will always be my favorite. I was on that, I'm still on that 30 plus years and never missed a meeting. But can I tell you, Canap asked me to go on the sewage because he had heard that I was on so long and never missed a meeting. He goes, "What do you think?" And I went, excuse my language, but I went, no, thank you. That's a shitty job. Nope.
We're all good. Thanks for the picture. Everybody see Christine's picture?
Yeah.
Beautiful,
Yeah, this
beautiful.
is a picture one of the photographers took at the Eagle.
Oh,
Yeah, it was posted on the
Eagle
town's
Park.
Facebook page too, I think.
Amazing.
Go down there, he sits up in the tree right on the point when you get to where the herring run comes in, look straight across up at the big pine tree.
Cool, cool.
Right, so we don't have any minutes because Dawn put them on here, but she didn't draft them yet, so thank you, Dawn, because I didn't want to do them anyway.
yeah.
You're welcome.
So if there's nothing else, Dawn?
I just want to make sure we're going to plan to meet again on the 10th, next Wednesday.
We will have the update from Karen then on these things, right? I think we're all working in the
Yes.
same direction.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, if not, motion?
I make the motion to adjourn this meeting.
by Deb, second. Christine,
Christine?
second. Okay,
Second,
roll call, Gary, aye. George,
Aye.
Paul,
aye.
Aye.
Liz,
Aye.
Christine.
aye.
Motion adjourned. Thank you all.
Great. Thank
Good
you all.
meeting.
Okay.
Good
Thanks,
meeting.
guys.
Thanks for all.
Nice to be talking with Dennis. I think that's
Thanks,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Progress.
nice, Gary. Thanks for doing that and putting
Yeah.
that on.
Jeff's idea, and I think it worked out well. So
It was
Thanks, Don
great.
Marie. That was great.
Oh,
Yep.
You're welcome. Welcome.
thanks
All right,
for putting
guys.
that together,
Thank
Don.
you all.
All
Be
right,
safe.
thanks
You're
all.
welcome.
See you
Stay
next
Thank
week.
safe.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Liz.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks.
Liz.
Debbie.